Welcome, Lauren. I'm so excited that you're a guest on my podcast.
So thank you, Connie, so much for having me here today. I'm thrilled to be on your show, and it's coincidentally this is the morning that your episode went live on my show. So I have all of you fresh in my brain, and I was actually talking with a friend yesterday who has a housekeeping business. And she got married and moved about 2 hours away, but she still would go back to her clients in the old town and kept up her housekeeping business for years. And she has the gift of organizing and decluttering and helping people with stuff like that. So I was sharing with her that that might be a way for her to, kind of bring her work closer to home instead of doing all that driving and things. But interesting, you've been on my mind for a whole week.
Shall I feel sorry for you?
No.
Yeah, but this is really awesome. We didn't plan it that way, that I'm doing the interview with you the day that me being a guest on your podcast is going to go live, but it's awesome. I love it. So Lauren, tell us a little bit, who is Lauren aside from what you're doing for a living? Like, where are you in the world, and who is Lauren privately?
Okay, well, I live, if you're familiar with the United States, I'm sure your listeners are all over the world, but I live on the border of two states, North Carolina and Tennessee. Excuse me. And I live in the Appalachian Mountains, and I have a tiny little cabin fairy cottage in the middle of the woods on the side of a mountain that's very isolated. I live here with my 7 pets, 2 dogs and 5 cats, and we are just happy and free all the time. And the climate here in the summer is very temperate and mild, so the windows and doors are always open, and it's just this place of freedom. Now, the place that I lived before this was a little 250 square foot basement apartment that was, there were 6 of us at that time, all crammed in there, me and my pets, and in a place where there were cars, and we didn't have freedom, and we didn't have, safety, though it wasn't safe for the pets to just wander free. But while I was there is while I was dreaming up this place and manifesting this place and bringing this into truth and reality. And that's a big part of my story that you'll read anywhere on my website, in my book, everywhere, about how from a very low bottom place of having nothing, I recreated my life and just couldn't be more thrilled and pinching myself every day with the way my life is going.
Yeah, I saw on your website you have a blog post titled "How I Got Here: A Story of Manifestation." So maybe just like condensed version, can you, like, how do you get from the little tiny apartment where and kind of like no freedom, and I hope you still had happiness, to this place now where you feel so free, and you have you are in a beautiful place in nature in the middle of the woods?
So we'll need to back up a step from that to talk about my life leading up to the basement apartment. I was very spiritual, very religious as an adolescent, and then I had a falling out with church, and so I had a falling out with God too, because my church convinced me that unless I was willing to do A, B, C, D, E, and F, then God didn't love me. And I wasn't willing to do A, B, C, D, E, and F. And I got the messages all mixed up in my head. And so I kind of broke up with God, but I was in love with the law of attraction. I was in love with positive psychology. I was a professional salesperson. So I knew about visualizing the outcome that you want, and all of these things that you can do with your mind, and how you can manifest your life in that way. And this is how I lived my life. I just kind of left God and spirit and the universe and everything out of it, because even though I was listening to spiritual teachers like Abraham Hicks, I would clue in on the life skills and the things to do and the ways to think, but I just kind of the spiritual woo-woo stuff, that's not for me. And so I manifested my life in this way, and I had great successes. But as soon as I would succeed at anything, I would sabotage myself and destroy everything and
Mm.
have to start all over, and operating from this place of very small energy in one human. You know, if you're not tapped into the universe, your energy is not very big. But so I did this again and again and again, and I tried to take care of all of my family. I tried to be the hero and the person who was able to help them get their lives the way I thought their lives should be. you,
Okay.
now at the time I thought I was being just wonderful and loving and sweet, but in hindsight, it was very arrogant. I was making the assumption that I know how to manifest and you don't. And
Yeah.
I know how to work with the law of attraction and all of these things, and you don't. So I have to help you, and I have to use my resources, my money, my energy, my time to help you. And there came a point when I realized that none of that was working. That the brother that I had enabled so long, he was, lived a troubled life. He had, addictions and things like that. He died as a result of his lifestyle. And my mother, who I was trying to help, wound up in a state-run nursing home because nobody had the money to pay for anywhere nicer. And my sister was losing her house. And all of these people that I thought I was saving, I didn't save anyone. And it was at this point that I realized that I needed to have faith that those people could find their own way, that they have their own path and their own purpose and their own access to God or the universe or spirit, or, whatever word you choose to call the force that beats your heart. And so I handed all of those people back to their own maker. And I gathered up all the life skills tools that I had. And from this really humble place that, ego was kind of kicked aside because I'd proven that my way wasn't getting it done. So I began to recreate from this place. And so I wanted to live in an area like this because there was an abundance of the property that I wanted, but I was bankrupt. Bankrupt people don't get mortgages as a rule, but I didn't pay any attention to that. I found a place that I could afford that was near what I wanted. And then I started practicing all of the life skills. I made lists of positive aspects of that little apartment every single day. And I taught myself, I let life teach me that if you choose to look at things that please you, you will be happy. If you choose to look at things that are awful, you will not be happy.
Yeah.
And it's very simple to say, but a longer process to learn but it's just like any other habit. You teach yourself, you catch yourself going, oh my God, I'm just sitting here bitching and complaining about all of this. I could just as easily spend that energy talking about something that I love, appreciating something. And so that from there, I created a very strong vision of the place that I wanted. And I had complete faith that it would be here in perfect timing. And in the meantime, I was as happy and grateful and deliberate about the way I was creating my life as I could be. And within a couple of years, it was all here. It was all here. And that's when I decided to become a teacher of this work. That was in 2014. And that's when Be Happy First was born.
It's an amazing story. And I saw on your website too that you said you're free to have career, money, love, happiness, anything that you want, but and then a lot of people, they of course are very skeptic, and they say, oh, this is BS, because if it would be true, anybody could do it and we would all be happy and have whatever we want. But there is work involved, and that's what you just said. It's like we have to focus on the right things. And it's similar, like my message always, like when you're focusing, like you're creating a life full of clutter, but at the same time you're craving to live in a beautiful home. It kind of doesn't work together, no. Exactly. And what comes to my mind is the beautiful story you told me about the orchid, the magic orchid story. Can you tell this? Because I think this will lead us into kind of the more nitty gritty that we want to talk afterwards.
Oh, I would love to. I love that story. It's like the center of my life and the center of my work. So this is the story of the magic orchid. And this is a story that my mother told me as a child. And I've not been able to find any other documentation anywhere that someone else wrote the story. So as far as I know, she made it up.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a woman, and she lived in a very cluttered and untidy home. And we don't know if this was because she just never learned to keep a cluttered home, or that she was just too depressed and heartbroken, or for
Mm-hmm.
whatever reason, her life was a mess inside and out. So one day the doorbell rang, and she went to the door in her ratty bathrobe, and a messenger was bringing a plant, and he didn't know where it came from. And so he handed her the plant, and she looked at it, and it was a beautiful orchid. And so she started to feel this spark of love just looking at this plant.
Mm-hmm.
And she turned around to find a place to put it, and there wasn't. There was no clear space in her whole home to put her magic orchid. So she put it very gently at her feet and cleared off a little space on a table so that she could put the orchid there. And she did. And she stood back and she looked at it, and she felt a little welling of appreciation and a little spark of happiness as she was looking at the plant. But then she noticed that it was very out of place in the cluttered table. So she cleaned up the rest of the table to match the cleared space where the orchid was. And
Mm-hmm.
she stood back and admired it some more, and was just feeling more and more pleased and grateful and appreciative of the beauty that this magic plant had brought to her home. But then she noticed that the table was very out of place in this cluttered room. And so she started to clean and to straighten and to organize things. And she heard herself starting to hum and felt herself starting to come alive as the room around her cleared. And she was just starting to feel great love and appreciation for this beautiful room. But she was a little tired and hungry and thirsty. So she brought her magic orchid into the kitchen to get a snack, and found the same situation there.
Mm-hmm.
So she cleared a spot, she put the magic orchid down, and this process repeated itself. And then into other rooms, into the rest of her home, and into her yard, and into her person, and into her mind and her heart.
Mm-hmm.
And the magic orchid lived on, and she kept it forever to remind her that beauty and clarity and gracious living are very simple if you take it one step at a time and
Yeah.
focus on one beautiful thought.
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing this story. I love this story.
I
When you
love
told me this story, I'm like, and like I have orchids, so that's one of my hobbies. For over 30 years, I have orchids. I'm not allowed to tell how many because I'm
Right.
supposed to be decluttered. Now I have about 30 orchids. Yeah, different kinds, and I love this story.
Yes.
And yeah, and it show I to me it's a representation of what I'm trying to teach. A few minutes a day keeps the chaos away. And also, like when I work with my clients, we do something I call the love tour. We go and we find a spot in the home that they really love, and that's where we start working from. And so that's kind of like what the story tells us. And it also tells us the story in a way of manifestation, and how to start with something beautiful to focus on and to be happy about first, before you may have the real reason to be happy. That's kind of like the message for me. What is the message for you?
Well, that is one of the messages. And the magic orchid is one of the journaling exercises that I teach to everyone that you do every morning. And so your journaling magic orchid is a thought, a memory, a dream, anything that you can bring to your mind that makes you feel happy. And then when you concentrate on a thought that feels happy, that attracts other thoughts that match that vibration. And then those thoughts attract other thoughts that match that vibration. And pretty soon you are genuinely in that high vibration place that matches that magic orchid. And when you have that to go back to all day, you can, when you find yourself frustrated or angry or overwhelmed or whatever, you can pause for a minute and think of your magic orchid, your tool that you already set up for yourself for the day, and turn your mood back around. It's a spiral, a spiral universe. If you are thinking positive things, then that spiral goes up and up and up and gets better and better and better. If you are thinking negative things, The spiral works the same, but in the opposite direction.
Mm-hmm.
You've done this. You remember an argument that you had and start thinking about the things you wish you had said. And you feel yourself just starting to get madder and madder. And pretty soon you're just as mad or worse than you were during the argument. And you're in a downward spiral.
Yeah.
But the beautiful thing is that you have the ability to stop that in its tracks anytime you want. And the sooner you do, the easier it is.
Yeah. And still, like, I can just, I hear a little voice in my head, even though I'm practicing this too. And I know from my listeners and from my clients that they are thinking, they're like, yeah, but I'm so busy and so much bad things are happening in my life or in the world and whatever. Do you have some tips how we can keep it like front and center? Because sometimes we can really get carried away and we all of a sudden are in a place that is so far away from our magic orchid.
Well, the first thing I would say, stop saying yeah but is just disqualifying everything and setting up in your own mind that you're not even going to try. So that it's just well, I don't believe that, so it's not going to happen for me, which is the absolute truth. So exactly. if you can get just a tiny little part of your mind to go, okay, maybe this is possible, let me give it a try, then you will prove it to yourself. And then your inner skeptic will go, okay, all right, fine, go ahead. that you will quiet your inner skeptic by proving it to yourself that you are not a victim of everything that goes on in the world. You are the creator of the existence that you are in, and you get what you pay attention to. And now if you decide that your happiness is dependent on how other people behave, what the weather does, what the politicians are doing, what the economy is doing, if you give your power away to all of those outside circumstances that you have no control over, you're not going to be happy, because all those things are not ever going to line up all at the same time. So okay, so maybe the economy is crap and my bank account is crap and I'm in a bad place financially. That's a part of my life that it could very well be the true fact at this moment, but that doesn't mean that's all of my life. And I don't need to spend all of my time lamenting and worrying and fretting over the lack of money. I can spend my time appreciating the people that I love and doing something that's fun, coloring, meditating, petting my cat, petting my dog. There are millions of other things that you can do instead of dwelling on what's wrong. And then you'll find if you do that on purpose, you'll find when you come back to look at that again, it's from a fresh perspective, and you get ideas and opportunities come to you that will help you to fix that situation and
you will pay attention to the opportunities because you're more open to it.
Exactly. You cannot see opportunities for growth when you're so busy looking at what is at a place of lack.
But I feel that is what a lot of people struggle with, that they always feel like I'm going to be happy when the bank account is as full as I kind of decide it has to be. Often they don't even have a number. They just say, oh, and I have enough money, and how much is enough, and so they're setting themselves up for failure. And still, it seems to be kind of like our default. So we have to really work hard to shift our focus. It seems like, because with whoever I'm talking to, like we're constantly shifting focus. So what I was wondering is, like, your book, Happy and Free on Purpose, is that like a guide or a manual how to do it?
Yes, it really is. Happy and Free on Purpose. The chapters are just describing all of these different ways that you can deliberately be the master of your mindset, be the master of your perspective, start your days on purpose, deciding what kind of mood you're in. I think before the recording started, you talked about postponing reading your email. Which is a fantastic idea, because a lot of times there are complaining customers or, whatever things that are more difficult to stay in a high vibration while you're dealing with. If you postpone those until your good mood is more firmly established,
Mm-hmm.
then you can go into those more difficult, less fun tasks with a greater attitude. So yes, and then at the end of the book, there's a step-by-step process. Do this, get this, do these practices, do
Mm-hmm.
this exercise to get back in touch with yourself and what you really love.
Mm-hmm.
Do this exercise to build your confidence and remind yourself of how many skills you have, how many innate talents you have, how many gifts you have. And then it's really teaching you that you really can have any kind of life that you want, and helping you to really believe that and begin to live your life in that way.
Yeah, beautiful. Show your book again, because
Oh,
for the people that watch,
there's
want to
the
show, because I
book.
want to show the beautiful dog.
This is my Lacey.
Yeah, so
She's
beautiful. Thank you.
amazing.
And now
Yeah.
you're writing a second book. How
I
is that
am
different from this one?
the second book is called You're Not Alone, You Never Were: Reconnecting to the God Within You.
Mm-hmm.
And that this is a spiritual journey. This is about it's based on how my life got so much better when I let God, when I let spirit, and it's another thing that we really struggle with as human beings is we land on words, and these words have a specific meaning, and nobody's allowed to make that word mean anything different. That's why God in the title is in lower letters, because to me, the spirit that created me, the universe, the force that beats my heart is not male, and God is a male term. It's not female either. It's all genders or no genders, or it's an energy. It's a benevolent life force that is always here. And there's nothing that you need to do to be worthy of it. There's nothing that you need to do to seek it out. It's here. And when you understand that and feel that power and that support, then suddenly life does seem much more doable, much easier, much more filled with grace and light and all of the happiness and joy that we are all seeking in this human experience.
And so do you have, because I hear this a lot, like with God, and I think this is a little bit where all these different churches had a lot of influence on how we grew up or what we think about God. And a lot of people say, oh, I don't believe because of all the, like you said in the beginning, the rules that the churches put on us. It's not God or spirit or the universe that puts the rules on us. I mean, they are universal laws, but those are not the ones the church talks about.
That's
and
right.
so I had to find my own way to God or goddess or to universe myself too, because we're so influenced. Do you have any like practical tips? Like I always try to give my listeners practical tips, how to find their version of how they feel connected.
Yeah, I have a whole book full
Yeah, I imagine, but
that I'm putting together. So I won't share with you the whole book. And first of all, I want to say that I'm not, against any religion. There, you can find God in church, but that's not the only place you can find God. That's the big lesson. And the practical thing is to sit for a moment and just kind of take yourself out of your head and into your heart and ask yourself what you love. Ask yourself what makes you feel alive. And it could be a tree. It could be the water. It could be the breeze. It could be the face of your child. It could all of these things that make you feel alive and amazing. That's where God is. Yeah. And this is, and that the voice of your spirit when you get familiar with the voice of your spirit. Just like when your mom calls, you don't have to ask who it is because you've been listening to her your whole life. You know what she sounds like when and it is absolutely and perfectly unique to you and to me, our direct connection to God. And nobody can tell you what is right or wrong about what that connection is. And that's the thing that I would say, that, I'm not telling you to ditch your church. I'm not telling you to get rid of any of that stuff. But if there's any point in time where you are feeling judged and made less, God will never do that.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
not the voice of God.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I meant with, and I didn't mean to say anything against churches. I
Right.
just say, like, if,
Right.
like you said in the
Mhm.
beginning, when
Yep.
something doesn't sit right with you, when there is demands that you know in your heart that they are not right, um yeah, then maybe you find your own connection. I see it the same way too. It's like no two people have the same connection with each other, like, even because we're all unique. So is our connection to the universe, God, spirit, whoever you want to call it,
Right. Right.
yes.
Right.
Yeah,
And
for me it's nature, and I go into nature where better to see the power and the love of the universe and of spirit than in nature. So
yes,
yeah,
that there's that all I have to do is step out of my door, and that these
yeah,
mountains are magical. The there are trees on every side
yeah.
of my house. I'm really plunked right in the middle of the forest, and it feels amazing. I feel like a part of nature, like I live in a tree house.
Yeah. That's so awesome. Now,
Yeah.
Lauren, if people are intrigued by what you talked about with your books, or how you manifested this beautiful place in the mountains, where can they find you? Where should they go? I know you have a podcast too. Maybe you want to talk a little bit about your podcast as well.
Yeah. So laurengfoster.com will take you to everything. There's a link to the podcast. There's all of my podcast episodes also have a video with show notes, and there's a lot of incredibly valuable information over there. Nearly every teacher that ever is on my show has a free gift. So it's a gold mine of anything that you could want about your health, about your happiness, about spirituality, about energy healing, about, I have mystics and mediums and all kinds of different people on the show. You can find a link to the book there as well. So the book is available on the website. I'm not sure when this will air, but right now we have a buy one, get one free sale for a second book called The Art and Truth of Transformation for Women. But no matter when this airs, every month we do a drawing for a free copy of the book and a free 30-minute coaching session with me for just getting on our email list by signing up for the newsletter, downloading a meditation, any of the free gifts. Just join the Be Happy First tribe and you'll be entered in that drawing.
Yeah, it sounds
That's
awesome. I
valuable.
was on your website. It's like a huge library. I could get lost there. It's awesome. It's really awesome. And I love to, like, our messages are aligned. I feel like when people clutter up their homes, it's often because they're looking at it wrong. Like, they think all this material stuff makes them happy, which often happens the opposite. They get overwhelmed, and yeah, so I love it. So do you have any, let's say, last words you really want to get out before we wrap up? Can't speak anymore.
So the message of your show is from chaos to peace. Yes.
Yeah.
And a few moments of meditation is the prescription that I would give anybody if they would never do anything else that I ever suggest. I would suggest in the morning a few minutes of meditation. Even if you only have time for 2 minutes, it will help. And if you can build up to a 20-minute meditation in the morning where you are deciding, actually, that's the second thing. The first thing, the first thing would be the very first moments of your day before you even open your eyes. Now, when you sleep, you've stopped all momentum. So there you get to start over every single time when you awake. But most of us just pick up our worries and troubles and to-do list right where we left them the day before. But if you make a conscious choice to say, this is an amazing new day, I'm going to start right now appreciating being in a good mood, looking for things to love. And I'm going to get really familiar with that feeling, and I'm going to keep it as long as I can. I'm going to try to feel this way as much of my day as I possibly can. that's the biggest tool, because once you get familiar with that feeling, you will fall in love with it and you will become very protective of it. You'll say, no, I'm not turning on the news. That really puts me in a bad mood, and I value my good mood. I'm not going to look at emails until later in the day, until I feel stronger in my good mood. So that's the first thing, is use that first momentum or lack of momentum of your day to set yourself up for success for that day.
I love that tip. And I love the meditation tip too. I always said it many times already. I wanted to have a meditation practice and I struggled with it. And I started with 3 minutes. I wanted to meditate 10 minutes a day, but I gave myself permission to just do it 3 minutes if for whatever reason the day was difficult, which is just a thought, but and it actually really works. That's why I always say a few minutes a day keeps the chaos away in any area of your life. And I'm so happy you came on to my podcast, Lauren.
I'm so happy you
had a treat.
Thank you.
I hope people watch the video too, because you see this beautiful, radiant person that you can just become happy looking at you, Lauren.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on.
There's no better compliment. Thank you for having me, Connie.